Good evening, student. Welcome to today class. Today we will discuss meaning, definition, aims, and nature of education. Introduction of education. Education is a systematic process through which a child or an adult acquire knowledge, experiences, skills, and sound attitude. It makes an individual civilized, refined, cultured, and educated. Its goal is to make an individual perfect. It is the key to solve the various problems of life. Education, in the broadest sense of the term, is meant to aid the human beings in his or her pursuit of wholeness. Wholeness implies the harmonious development of all the potentialities God has given to a human person. True education is the harmonious development of the physical, mental, moral, spiritual, and social, the four dimension of the life for a life of dedicated service. The meaning of education. The word education has been derived from different Latin words. First, educare, which means to bring out, to nourish. Educier, which means to lead out or to draw out. Educatum, which means act of teaching or training. Educators, which means to bring up, rear, educate. This is the meaning of education derived from the Latin words. The most common Indian word shiksha is derived from the Sanskrit verbal root sas, which means to discipline, to control, to instruct, and to teach. Similarly, the word vidya is derived from the Sanskrit verbal root vid, which means to know. Vidya is thus the subject matter of the knowledge. Synonyms of education, pedagogy from GK to lead a boy, learning, knowledge, teaching, and training. These are the synonyms of education. Now we will discuss some definition of education. First, we will discuss Indian concept definition. Then we will discuss Western concept of education. First, we will discuss according to Upanishad. Education is that whose end product is salvation. This definition is given by the Upanishad. According to Rig Veda, education is something which make a man's self-reliant and selfless. Next definition of education, according to Shankaracharya, education is the realization of the self. According to Kautilya, education means training for the country and love for the nation. Shankaracharya include the training word in education. It means education train the student for develop country love. Next, Indian thinker Gandhiji. By education, I mean all round drawing out of the best in the child and main body, mind and spirit. गांधी जी ने शिक्षा को बच्चों का चहुमुखी विकास का आधार बताया. डॉक्टर according to Zakir Hussain, education is the word of the whole life. It is being from the time to birth and continues till the last moment of the death. It means education is a continuous process, starting from the birth and ending with from the death. According to Rabindranath Tagore, education enables the mind to find out the ultimate truth, which gives us the wealth of the inner light and love and give significance of the life. These are some definition according to Indian thinker. Now we will discuss Western concept, Western thinkers definition of education. First we will discuss Plato definition. Education is the capacity to feel pleasure and pain at the right moment, according to Plato. Next definition of Western thinker, Aristotle. Education is the creation of a sound mind in a sound body. Plato Z definition of education. Education is natural, harmonious, and progressive development of a man's innate powers. Next, DV, according to education, is the process of living through a continuous reconstruction of a experiences. These are the definition given by the some Western thinker. Now we will discuss narrow concept of uh, education. According to SS McKinsey, in narrow sense, education may be taken to many any consequently directed efforts to the develop and cultivate our powers. Next, Professor Driver, education is the process in which and by which knowledge, character, and behavior of the younger are shaped and molded. Education in the narrow senses is regarded as the equivalent to instruction. It consists of the specific influences consciously designed in a school or in a college or in uh, and institutions to bring in the development and growth of the child. Broader concept of education, according to Willie, education in its widest sense include all the influences which act upon an individual during his passage from cradle to the grave. According to John Dewey, education in the broadest sense is the means of the social continuity. Education in the wider sense is a lifelong process. It is being with the birth of the child and end with his death. It is a continuous process. Continuity is the law of life. Education is not limited to the classroom only. It is also not limited to a particular period of time. What is modern concept of education? Modern concept of education is learner centered. The learner occupies the center place in the education process. Modern concept of education means to develop the inherent capacity of the learner in the social environment in the best possible manner. The old curriculum was subject centered, whereas the modern concept of the curriculum is activity centered because it emphasizes development of total personality. For example, is that physical, intellectual, emotional, and social aspect of the personality of the pupil. The old method emphasizes on rote learning, but the modern methods of teaching include playway method, learning by doing, learning by experiencing experiences, and project method. School was only agency of education in the old concept, but according to modern concept of education, all formal and informal agencies are the base of the education. This is the difference of modern concept and the old concept of education. Education as a bipolar process, it involves the interaction between the teacher and the pupil. In this process, one personality act upon another in order to modify the personality of other. Education, teacher, pupil. Education as a tripolar process. It involves interaction between the pupil, the educator, and the social environment. The teacher tries to develop the personality of the pupil in the light of the needs of the society. Education, teacher, social environment, pupil. Functions of education. Education is a dynamic process. In the words of ML Jacks, there is a plenty of work for education to do. Its prime task is to transform original evil into acquired good. Education must enable the child to think for himself, to respect hard work, to have a good fellowship, to have taste and senses of internal realities. We shall study the function of education in three main categories. General function of education, function of education in human life, function of education in national life. We will discuss the three main category of education function. First, we will discuss general function of education. General function of education, progressive development of innate powers. All-round development of personality. Control, redirection, and sublimation of instincts. Character building and moral development of a person. Awakening of social feelings. Preparation of cultural and civilization. Social forms, national security. These are the main functions of the education. Function of education in human life. Making the man civilized. Satisfaction of needs. Adaptation of the environment. Modification of the environment. Development of character. Development of individuality. Preparation of for a life. Certain creation of a good citizen. Practical knowledge of various shares of work. Promotion of social efficiency. Function of education for in national life. For national life to be possible, it is essential that its members who common tradition, interest, uh, political ambitions, and national unity. The main function of education at national life are training for leadership, consciousness of duties, supply the of scale worker, skilled worker, uh, national development, national integration, priorities of national interest, promotion of social efficiencies. These are the main function of education in national life. Aims of education. Every stage of human development had some aims of life. The aims of life determine aims of education. The aims of education have changed from age to age, and thus it is dynamic because the aims of the life are dynamic. Aims of education are not fixed. Eternal and universal. These are changeable and relative. There is great necessity of aims in education because of the following reasons. To direct effort to avoid wastage, to evaluate overslaps, to provide efficient school administration, to evaluate the existing condition. Individual aim of education. The psychologist, the Roche, astrology, and Forbel, etc., start emphasizes development of individuality as the aim of education for the better understanding of his aim. It is essential to understand narrow and wider meaning of this aim. Individual aims, narrow meaning, self expression, wider meaning, self realization. Narrow meaning of individual aim. The narrow sense of individual aim of education is based on the naturalistic philosophy. It is the all-round development of the child, power, and natural development. According to this philosophy, the child should be given complete freedom to develop according to his instincts. Wider meaning of the individual aim. In the wider sense, individual aim is described as self realization. The opportunities should be provided while keeping in the mind the need, interest, and ability of the child. The child should be given all those opportunities which may help him in the total development of all his powers and in making him an excellent individual. Nature of education. Education is a lifelong process. Education is a continuous and lifelong process. It starts from the womb of the mother and continues till the death. It is the process of development from infancy to maturity. It includes the effect of everything which influences human personality. Education is a systematic process. It refers to transact its activities through a systematic institutions and regulation. Education is development of individual and the society. It is called a force of social development which bring improvement in every aspect in the society. Education is modification of behavior. Human behavior is modified and improved through educational process. Education is a purposive. Every individual has some goal in his life. Education contribute in attainment of that goal. There is a definite purpose underlined all educational activities. Education is a training. Human sense, mind, behavior, activities, skills are trained in a constructive and socially desirable way. Education is instruction and direction. It direct and instruct an individual to fulfill his desire and need for acceleration of his whole personality. Education is life. Life without education is meaningless. And like the life of a beast, every aspect and incident needs education for its sound development. So, education is the life. Without education, our life is meaningless. Education is continuous reconstruction of our experiences. As, as per the definition of John Dewey, education reconstruct and remolds our experience toward socially desirable way. Education help in individual adjustment. A man is a social being. If he is not able to adjust himself in different aspect of life, his personality cannot remain balanced. Through the medium of education, he learns to adjust himself with the friend, class, uh, uh, mm, fellows, parents, uh, neighbors, relations, and teachers. So, education help in individual adjustment. Education is a balanced development. Education is concerned with the development of all the faculties of the child. So develop the facilities of the child. It perform the function of the physical, mental, aesthetic, moral, economical, spiritual development of individual, so that the individual may get rid of the his animal instincts by supplementing the same, so that he become a civilized person. Now we will discuss types of education. Generally, education have three types: formal education, non-formal education, and informal education. First, we will discuss the formal education. Formal education is basically an institutional activity, uniform and subject oriented, full time, hierarchical instructed, structured, leading to certificate, degree, and diplomas. Characteristics of the formal education: full-time education, technical and professional training, a variety of specialized programs running from primary school through the university, chronologically graded education system. Non-formal education: any organized education activity outside the established formal system, uh, whether the operation separately or as an important feature of some broader activity that is intended to serve identifiable learning, uh, client tells and learning objectives. Characteristics of non-formal education: it is flexible in nature, it is life environment learner oriented, it is diversified in content and method, it is non authoritarian, it is built on learner participation, it enhances human and environmental potential. Informal education, uh, it truly lifelong process whereby every individual acquire attitude, values, skills, and knowledge from daily experiences and educative inferences and resources in his life or her environment, from family and neighbors, from work and play, from the marketplace, the library, and the mass media. Characteristics of informal education. Informal education is the least control. That's why this type of education cannot be excluded of somebody life. Informal education consists of accidental, unclear information and quantitative information. Informal education refers even to emotion, feelings, and belief, etc. Informal education offers responsiveness, ready response when interact with environment. Informal education offers possibility to freely act in unknown situation. Informal education offers freedom to self formation. So these are the characteristics of informal education. These are the reference of our today lecture. Now time for MCQs. The word education has been derived from the different filling the blank word. Option A Latin, option B Hindi, option C English, option D Sanskrit. Correct answer is option A Latin. The word education has been derived from the different Latin word. Next MCQ is the word educare, which means option A to bring out or to nourish, option B to lead out or to drawn out, option C act of teaching or training, option D to bring up, rare, educate. Correct answer is of option A to bring out, to nourish, the word meaning of educare. Next MCQs. Who said that by the educational I mean all round drawing out of the best in the child, main body, mind and spirit, according to Zakir Hussain? Option A, option B Gandhiji, option C Rabindranath Tagore, option D Plato. Correct answer is option B Gandhiji. Gandhiji gives this definition of education. Next, who said that education is the work of the whole life? It is being from the time of the birth and continues till the last moment of the death, according to option A Zakir Hussain, option B Gandhiji, option C Rabindranath Tagore, option D Plato. Correct answer is Zakir Hussain. Next MCQs. Types of education are option A formal education, option B non-formal education, option C informal education, option D all above. Correct answer is all above. We have three types of education: formal, informal, non-formal education. Next MCQs. The word shiksha is derived from the filling the blanks verbal root sus, which means to discipline, to control, to instruct, and to teach. Option A Latin, option B Hindi, option C English, option C D Sanskrit. Correct answer is Sanskrit. The word siksha is derived from the Sanskrit verbal root sas, which means to discipline, to control, to instruct, to teach. Next MCQ. Non-formal education is flexible. True and false. Option A true, option B false. Option A is correct, false. Non-formal education is a flexible. Next MCQs. Informal education refers even to emotion, feeling, belief, etc. You have two options, true and false. Option is true. Informal education refers to even emotion, feelings, and belief, etc. Next MCQs. Education in the wider sense is a lifelong process. Option A true, option B false is true. Education is a lifelong process. Next MCQ. Formal education, full-time education. Option A true, option B false, option A is true. Formal education is a lifelong process. Thank you, student. You listen me patiently.